coming live from the Dallas On Air studio in downtown Dallas. This is Real Estate Reality. I am your host, Amy Reed. With us in studio today is Michael Gentilini. Wow, that's got some heritage behind it, I'm sure.
A little bit.
And of course, we have Kat with us in studio, keeping
Hi,
us.
You guys, I'm so happy to be back.
We are too. I know it's been a minute. We had holidays, we had sickness, we had weather, and now we have a show. Holidays, here they come. Weather is supposed to come in today too and be weird, but you know we never can depend on that.
I got rained on this morning. I had a house to look at. Yeah, I got rained on. It was not too pleasant.
Nice. So, what are your big plans for the holidays? Do you have any big holiday traditions with a name like that?
Well, that side is actually all up in Canada, and we don't get to do Christmas very often.
Okay.
So I've kind of adopted my wife's family.
Okay.
And so they do a couple of things in Texas, and then I've got some kids that live in Austin.
Nice.
So there's multiple Christmases.
Have you done your Christmas shopping? Do you know what you're getting the kids this year?
I still got time.
Okay.
Yeah, I got time.
All right. Do you have things on your list? All my lists are on Amazon this year.
That's probably where most of mine's going to go. It's going to be that or an ATM.
Yeah, it's easy.
Yeah,
it's easiest. It's easiest. You know, for the grandparents, from my parents, we try to do more like activity-based stuff. You know, and we really started that when my kids were younger.
Sure.
You know, 1 year, Papa got my oldest son a big camping trip to Colorado, and art. We've had art classes, we've had dance classes, we've done all this stuff. So, grandmas and papas are hard to buy for.
I've got a conundrum.
Yes.
I've got a son who's turning 21.
Okay.
And it's Christmas.
Okay.
And he just got his GED.
Wow.
And those all happened within a month. So I have to make sure it's something special.
Something special. Well, if he's turning 21, adult beverages now go onto the list.
There will be there might be.
Yeah, not too many though.
Yeah.
We don't have to have too many. That's one of the worst things about, I know I have some friends who serve in bars, and they're like, the 21-year-olds, they don't come in and buy their own beverages. It's everybody gifting them beverages, you know, so that's a bad gift. All the beverages to a 21-year-old who has technically never drank before, that's a bad gift. Yeah.
Yeah, I might accompany him with him
that's
for
not
one
a
or
bad
two.
Plan. That's not a bad plan.
And we'll just spend some time.
You know what else is not a great gift, but
What's
everybody
that?
seems to think it's a good gift, is pets at the holidays. Have you done that before?
No, never done that.
No,
thank goodness.
It's difficult, you know. I get it, you know, having kids, and it seems like a really good match, but if you look at the statistics, the return on the a year later, you know, when these cute little puppies are now tearing up your house, and nobody was really ready for this, and we still have, you know, all of the soccer practices and all of the dance recitals and all the school, you know, all the responsibilities of daily life. I think too many people just don't come into it. You know, they have this problem also at Easter with bunnies and chickies.
Bunnies and chickies.
Yeah.
I think buying pets for people is kind of like buying clothing.
Yeah.
It's something you've got to buy yourself, and it's something you've got to love.
You know.
And then you'll realize there's the whole upkeep side.
Yeah.
It's not as highly rated as one might think.
Yeah. You know, my when my son was in 4th grade, my oldest son was in 4th grade, he had a science teacher who had a bearded dragon in the classroom, and he decided he needed a bearded dragon for Christmas, and nothing else would do for him. So we just don't believe in that. A pet is a lifetime commitment, you know. It's not just for the next 6 to 12 months.
Yep.
4th grade to college, you know, what are you going to do when you go to college? So we actually made a deal with him. For Christmas, we bought the habitat and all the things it needed, the lights and the heat lamps and the stones and the food, all the things we bought.
Sure.
And then it was up to him, his birthday's a month later, to earn the money to buy the dragon himself.
That's great.
So he had to show the responsibility. He had to show that he was willing to work for it, and we never got a bearded dragon. But
that's funny how that works.
Yeah.
Cars kind of work the same way with kids.
Cars,
too.
That's another one.
I want the car, but I don't want to maintain it and put gas in it. Can you? And it's like, well, I'll help you get started, and I'll help you get there, but it's on you.
Yeah. Well, the pet thing is a big deal. You know, they're running a lot of the shelters right now are running a big adopt, don't shop.
Absolutely.
And I'm a fan of that. Like the Dallas, I think one of the local news stations had a report from the Dallas shelter. Well, I think it was last week. Capacity the shelter was at capacity. They were waiving the fees, come on down, grab your pet, have a great holiday, which I am not opposed to.
Sure.
But I think that, especially when you're talking about a household that's already chaotic, or you already have kids, or you haven't been planning to do this, it's not a great impulse buy. I can go on Amazon and buy all kinds of great things that I can return.
Absolutely.
After the impulse has passed and it wasn't as well received as I thought.
Sure.
But lives are lives, you know.
Lives are absolutely lives. A lot of them are there because someone thought they could do it a few months ago.
Well, we have 3 at our house. Kat, do you have those pictures? Yeah, we have 3 little babies at our house, and they're all rescues. Yeah, there they are right there. So the big one there looking one is Slade. We adopted him a year ago in July, right after the 4th of July, because that's another time when the shelters are really full.
Sure.
And then in the upper corner there you have Duke, and Duke came home with us from the balloon festival, because everyone goes to the balloon festival to adopt a dog. But keep in mind, it sounds very impulsy. It does.
Sure.
But we had been looking for a while.
Absolutely.
And then you have Marcia, and she is our old lady. She will be 16 in February.
Wow.
So animals are a long time commitment.
Yeah.
They are there's Duke again after coming from the groomer. He doesn't always look like a homeless man. He always either looks very dapper or he looks like a homeless man. There is no in between for Duke.
Is he your assistant when you go to houses to represent folks?
No. It's mainly his job is to pee in the house when it's raining. That's his primary responsibility. Yeah. And then do you have the other ones, Kat? There's Marcia. That's our old lady, and that's her job right now. Her job is to find a place to lay in her bed and live out her last days.
Sure.
She can't hear, she can't see.
Sure.
She has arthritis, and she's just gonna have her best life until she's done with it.
We have a pretty similar situation.
Yeah.
We got Lionel, who's about 9-year-old cat, who used to have a brother. His brother got sick.
Yeah.
Then we got Crash. Crash is, I don't know what she is. The vet can't really tell us, but she's really cute, and she's got these pointy ears. And she's got a great temper, and she's about 3 years old. And we pretty much had planned to do that. And then about a year later, she doesn't have anyone to play with, so we had to get another.
See, and that's how we ended up actually with Duke, because Marcia, we had another dog that was her companion, and he passed away, and we. She had all those symptoms of depression and because she was home all day. Everybody was at school, everybody was at work, and she was home by herself. So we had started looking for, Duke is the dog that we say we got a dog for our dog, Actually, my youngest son, it's technically his dog because he's the one who was like, this is the dog we're bringing home. And we had looked for a while before we picked him up. But it was a planned purchase. It sounds very impulsive, but it was a planned addition to the family.
That's the story I would tell myself.
And Slade, our other dog there, he the one that we got right after the 4th of July, he came from the shelter, because all 3 of these are rescue babies. Marcia was a puppy when we got her. She was a rescue, but she was a puppy. We picked her out of her litter. But Slade was rough. Slade was hard. Slade was on the fence for over a year. He had to have a lot of training.
Oh, wow.
We don't know we don't know what his history was. We know that when we got him, he had already lost an eye. But that had happened at the shelter. Like when they brought him in, that was part of the process he had to go through to be adopted. We don't know if that happened while he was in transit, while he was on the road. We don't know. But he had decided that I was his primary person, and anyone coming in the house, he would go after. And that was really difficult, because when my kids who didn't live there full time would come in, they just walk in their house. This is their home. Even though they're not here full time, this is their home. And it took quite a bit of training for him to be reassured that it's okay for this to happen. And still now when somebody knocks at the door that we're not expecting, he still goes crazy, So even adopting a pet, this might not be the right time of year to do that.
No, and you never know. So Crash, she's about 3, and you'd think she's just the happiest, spryest little puppy. She runs. She's been wincing and crying for off and on, and we'd taken her to a couple of vets, and when you take her, nothing's wrong.
Yeah.
So they said, well, she probably pulled a muscle.
Oh.
And we finally went and had an x-ray done. And when the x-ray was done, they said it looks like she was thrown out of a car, or she was in a serious accident. She's got permanent damage to her back.
Wow.
That will never be repaired.
Wow.
You wouldn't know. She's just a happy little puppy.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's you just never know, but they still deserve to have a great home.
Yeah, and every home deserves to have a great pet too.
Absolutely, it makes you so much better.
You just have to do it right. So you can go to Pet Finder, petfinder.com. This is one of the things that I highly recommend. Your home might not actually be ready, but when you get to their website, you can find local rescues. You can find places to volunteer. You can find places to foster. I highly recommend getting registered with the fosters and letting those babies come to you. The coolest thing is, have you heard of a foster fail?
I've not heard of a foster fail.
Kat, have you heard of a foster fail? So a foster fail is when they come to your house as a foster and you're just supposed to keep them so that they're not in the shelter and they're not, taken away before their time. And they come and they live at your house forever because fostering indicates that they're just going to be there for a short amount of time.
Right.
The beauty of the foster program, in my opinion, is when you get an animal into your home that needs more work than you're able to give, you are able to send them to another foster home that might be, the network for you is there until you find the right baby that's supposed to be in your house. So for the holidays, while I do believe that every home should have a fur baby in it, or a scale baby, or whatever, feather baby, if that's what you want to have.
Sure, swim baby.
Absolutely.
I have all of those.
You have all the above? Kat, you have chickens at your house.
I have chickens, I have cats, I have dogs, and I have fish.
That's right. There you go. So she's...
Sounds like
I
a petting
didn't
zoo.
get any of them for Christmas.
None for Christmas. There you go. No gifts. No gifting of animals. So keep in mind this year, if you're going to do that, if you're thinking about doing it now, at least you have you're thinking about it.
Absolutely.
I applaud that. If you're planning it, I applaud that even more.
But if you're not planning, maybe you want to stay away from the shelter so you don't make an unplanned purchase that you end up regretting and you're not
The other
prepared for.
thing is great, if you have kids of a certain age, most of these shelters, I know the SPCA, I forget their age cutoff, I want to say it was 10 or 12 with an adult. You can go and you can volunteer at their location and help walk those dogs and help, and it's one more thing to put on the list with, soccer practice and band camp and all the other things, but it kind of helps you make good decisions.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
After the holidays, the number of purebred pets that end up back in the shelters are ridiculous because people get these animals, even if they choose to shop and bring home a, purebred, whatever you're into, German Shepherd, Golden Retriever, Pit Bulls and Chihuahuas, I think are the two highest that end up back at the shelters after the holidays.
I believe it.
Pitties are very special animals. We have talked to Julie with Two Bullies and a Blonde, a local association here who deals strictly with, I believe, pit bulls. That's her rescue.
Okay.
Because they're misunderstood.
Yep.
A lot of times they're mistreated. And we've got Luke with us here in the studio today, and he's just living his best life. He's just laying over here by Kat.
I'm a little jealous of Luke.
Yeah, and he's just totally chill, and he is the best dog because Kat is a responsible pet owner, and she takes care of him. And I remember when you guys got Luke. I think it was Luke that you got.
Well, we had the mom, so all of them are from different litters.
Yeah.
She's a AKC purebred, and we fortunately got attached to a puppy out of every single litter.
Yeah.
So we kept one.
Yes.
So he's 4 years old?
Yeah.
Maybe almost 5.
Yeah, and I remember when he was a baby. And the thing is that they are so responsible. When they were breeding, they were so responsible with each one of those babies that they were socialized properly, they were treated well, they were members of the family until they didn't just let anybody have them, but this is the product that you get when that happens, so just be smart. If you're gonna incorporate a new member of the family, know your options, check out the shelters, check out Pet Finder, do your research.
Because
Volunteer.
people won't They won't deworm them. They won't give them shots.
Right.
I mean, you can not only get fined for that, but you can lose your family member. They can get really sick and ill. So research too.
Yeah.
It's a life.
It is. So happy holidays. Get a fur baby if you want one, but do it responsibly. Foster. Do all the things. Every home should have a baby, have a fur baby. And every home should have a good appraisal. Yes, Michael?
I tend to believe that, yeah.
There you go.
I think that's a
All
great
right.
idea.
So why don't we go to break?
All right.
And when we come back, we are going to talk about the ins and outs of the big A word.
The A word.
The A word. All
Sounds
right.
kind of scary.
All right. We'll be right back after this break.
All right.
All right. And we're back. So we are with Michael Gentilini.
Gentilini, well done.
Gentilini.
Very
Okay. Yeah. Phonetics are your friend.
I'm Irish.
With Whoa, and you are with DFW Quality Appraisal.
Yeah, I'm the owner. That's me. I'm
Cool.
the appraiser.
So what is it that you do exactly?
I'm an appraiser. So I'm the one, if you buy a house, if you sell a house and you're getting the loan, or the person buying it's getting the loan, I'm the one that the bank is going to send out to tell them how much they should loan on the house.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of times appraisers are so misunderstood. I believe that. I tell all my clients that this is the actual person who makes the kind of final decision on how much you're really paying for this house, how much this house is really worth.
Sure.
But I also tell them that you're kind of robots with heart, because you're not heartless monsters.
I prefer accountant.
Accountant?
I
Okay.
prefer more
All
like an
right.
accountant. Yeah.
All right.
There's a heart somewhere.
Somewhere in there. And that's what gets so important. You know, you see all these ads like on Facebook or
Sure.
out there, you know, we can tell you what your house is worth. We can tell you how much you should sell your house for. And I say, no, that is so much BS. I can't tell you what your house is worth.
Sure.
I can give you an idea based on the information that I have to work with
Absolutely.
of how much money the lender should feel comfortable negotiating around with you for.
Sure.
But I can't really tell you what your house is worth.
No, and if you look at all your online sources,
Yeah.
if you go to 5 of them or 10 of them and they all have a different number,
Yeah.
which one do you want to trust?
You know, we've talked about this on the show before, and I am not bashing any online sources. Don't hear that at all. No bashing. But one of the biggest, not really problems, but uncomfortable parts for me of my job right now for working with sellers
Sure.
is they go on to some of these sites that are saying, we'll show you how much they're paying for ads on Google
Yeah.
and all optimized. We'll show you how much your house is worth. Click on our link here. And that's great. But then they give you this range.
Sure.
And they show you your next door neighbor's house and we're all curious. It used
Everybody's
to be
curious. You should be curious. It's fun.
Yes. As soon as you see that sign go up, it used to be back in the day, as soon as you saw that sign go up, you would call the number. Hello.
Uh-huh.
Amy, I just saw that my neighbor's house is listed. How much is that going for?
Yeah.
And that was great and fine. Now they just hop online.
Yep.
In their dark bedrooms with all the, no one needs to know that you know, but you want to know, right? And we have so many online resources where you can go and you can find that out,
Sure.
but they're not always accurate. People don't realize that they don't get.
They're pretty rarely accurate,
Right.
and realize that those are sales pieces.
Right.
So they're only showing you the best stuff.
Right.
They're not going to tell you that, well, we didn't take a picture of the bathroom because
Right.
the toilet
Because it's scary.
is scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we kind of had this hierarchy of numbers. You start with those online sources that are kind of random.
Sure.
Close.
Don't forget the tax assessments.
Tax assessments,
Tax
which is a
assessments.
whole nother
Different
crime
animal.
story.
Yeah.
And then you have what's called a CMA.
CMA.
So when clients come to me, I have access to what has sold in their neighborhoods, basically anything that has been through the selling process, through the system in the last, I don't know, I think we over 10 years now. I think we have at least 10 years of data in the
Maybe
system.
more than that. I know the trends data goes back.
Yeah. I know, quite a ways back.
Yeah.
That I have access to, which gives me good, solid numbers on what has actually occurred. And then you have access to those numbers as well.
I have access to the same information you're looking at.
But you take it to another step. So you can get online, you can get an idea. You can
Yep.
call me, and I can sit down with you, and I can show you what has happened.
Yep.
And we can come up with a number together. But when it comes to you, you go even to that next level looking for, you're like that ultimate drill down.
I am the specialist. I'm trained.
Right.
Right? I'm an appraiser. I get a license that's issued through the state. It's actually a federal license.
Nice.
So, and my only job is to figure out value and support value.
Right.
So that whomever decides to buy your loan or buy that loan
Right.
feels confident that they're paying the right price
Right.
for it. When your realtor does a CMA, they do 100 different things for you.
Right.
And so coming up with a price, they do more of a treetop look.
Right.
I go into the forest, I find the area of the trees that look just like yours, and then I find the 6 trees
Right.
that look identical to yours, as much as possible if they exist, right?
Right.
And it's more likely you're going to be like those 6 trees than the possible range of the entire forest.
Right.
So that's kind of what we do.
And so we say on our end of it, what is the house actually worth? The house is actually worth what the buyer is willing to pay for it.
And that's always true.
Absolutely. Because on our side of it, and this is why I say you guys are robots with hearts, on our side of it, we are buying from emotion. You know, we are going in and we're saying, I like this floor color. I like the sunset in this window. I like that you can walk 3 blocks and be at, my local coffee shop, whatever it is that is attracting you from an investment, from your heart. But from an investment point of view, that's where you come in and kind of hold the gate.
Yeah. So all that, if you have a great location because you can walk, well, everyone else in that neighborhood has that same kind of good thing. And the prices in that neighborhood are probably going to echo that. So
Right.
the neighborhood that's further away from wherever you're walking to,
Right.
it's going to probably not sell the same. It could be apples to apples.
Right.
Just like if you're buying in the house in the neighborhood that's a half a mile from the street that's next to the city shopping, or
Right.
next to the coffee shop, or next to the water, well, that one's probably going to sell less. And if you're buying there, you shouldn't pay the same price that you're going to buy for the house that's right next to it.
And even if it's this is a huge deal. I actually had a friend who was working with an investor. So I've been in the neighborhood, the area that I'm in, the market that I'm in for a long time, and I was there when some of the stuff was being built. And when you go in and you just pull a CMA and you're looking in this particular area,
Sure.
if you weren't there when it was put together, you don't realize that what actually happened was there were these custom home builders in this geographical area that were very fancy pants houses, and then a lower end builder, a tract home builder, as you know, you would say, came in and bought this small plot of land adjacent to that, and stuck a bunch of homes on like 3 little streets right there. When you look on the pictures, when you look on MLS or any of those other online places, the pictures all look about the same. They are not priced the same. They are not going to bear the same appraisal. They are not, because they're not apples to apples. They're not the same HOA. They don't have the same. And so how much does HOA impact what you do? Like if you're in an HOA neighborhood that has a pool and a golf course and all those things, does that really impact your decision on the appraisal? Does it make the house worth more?
Well, generally, we're always going to try and compare you to something in your own neighborhood.
Right.
So everything in your neighborhood has access to those same amenities.
Right.
If you're in a neighborhood where nothing's sold and you are paying an HOA and you have pool, well, we're probably going to go to another neighborhood that has similar amenities. They pay a little bit less. They may pay a little bit more. If we're going to even a neighborhood that doesn't have the pool and the amenities in the HOA, well, there's a lot of people that will pay the same amount because they don't want to continue to pay that monthly. They don't want to be told what to do.
Right.
And so in my experience, it doesn't very often make a difference, that alone. We'd always analyze it and look, but in my experience, you rarely see it. Right.
So we were kind of talking about this earlier because it is a big deal right now. The market is cooling.
It's been cooling for a while.
Yeah. And I think that, like we were kind of talking about tracking backwards in our own experience, when did you kind of first feel it?
Sure.
And I think I first felt it like a year ago in the spring. So not this spring, but a year ago in the spring. And I do a lot of work in the northern area where there's still a lot of builders and that market is being driven in that way. But I think that the builders kind of reached saturation. So now we're back at that supply and demand equalization. And it's starting to cool. It's starting to, be a little bit more affordable for those people who are coming into the market for the first time.
Sure.
But how is that going to work? So if I paid $100,000 for a house a year ago, and the market is starting to cool, and the house next to me is going to sell for 90, and the house next to that is going to sell for 80.
Sure.
What am I going to be doing? Like, if I want to sell that $100,000 house, am I still going to get it valued at $100,000?
So the appraisal is always based on that day.
Right.
So if 3 of your neighbors have houses that look just like your house, and they just sold them 3 months ago, and one sold it for 80, and one sold it for 82, and one sold it for 84.
Yeah.
What is a reasonable value of your house?
Right.
Is a reasonable value of your house $100,000? If you had the money and you were going to go buy that same house today, we call it principal substitution.
Nice.
Which is what would it cost to replace essentially what you have. So what would you pay if you wanted to replace your house today?
Right.
And you would probably pay about, $82,000?
Right. You would feel paying more than that was.
So if you want to sell that house, maybe you put a large down payment down.
So what I'm hearing is a lot of people are going to be really mad at you in the coming weeks. Months,
probably in the coming years. Yeah, there's probably a good chance.
Okay.
There's a lot of misinformation and lack of education out there.
Yeah. So one of the myths that I deal with is that your word is law. And when the appraiser comes back at X, the number shall now be X for now until forever for this particular transaction. Is that true?
I wish it were.
Okay. So if I'm working with a client, either a buyer or a seller, and we have a contract come in and we've all agreed that the contract number is $200,000, and you come in and you say, I've looked at everything. I've used my robot brain to look at everything.
Robot brain.
And the best I can do for you is authorize this at 190.
Authorize. Well, I would say according to your neighbors, because your neighbors just sold their houses and they're the ones telling me. But if I come in at 190 and you think it's worth 200, you cannot engage me directly.
I can't just call you on the phone.
Yeah, we really shouldn't.
Okay.
Even though you may be the buyer.
Okay.
In this case, say you're the buyer and you're trying to buy a $200,000 house.
Right.
So even though you're the buyer, the bank is the one that's putting the money up. The bank is the one that's ordered me to come out there. So the bank is the person I deal with, just like your real estate agent's the person you deal with.
Right.
So you could talk to your real estate agent.
Right.
And if your real estate agent says, hey, but why didn't they look at the house 3 doors down that just sold last week? And there may or may not be a reason, but if you have a valid concern, then pass it on to your agent, and they can pass it on to the bank or the mortgage company. And I'm always open to learn.
So here's one of my favorites, okay? Sure. Because, and again, remember that part of our process here is to help educate the consumer.
Absolutely,
right?
It's important.
It is so important. So what the general consumer knows is here's how it looks in their eyes, right? I'm paying for the appraisal.
Sure.
So you work for me.
Right.
Is that true?
That is not true.
Oh, no.
Well, most likely you're paying for the appraisal so that you can get a loan. And the bank
it's part of your financing package.
The bank is making a loan for probably about 30 years.
Exactly.
And they are the ones that are telling me, before I lend this money, I want to make sure that it's worth it.
So even though when it comes down to closing on paperwork, what they're going to see is they're going to see DFW quality appraisals on that little line on their closing, and it says they paid X amount of dollars.
They probably won't even see my name. They're going to see, most of the time nowadays, they're paying a middleman.
Yeah.
So they're going to see a middleman that they pay, or the mortgage company will pay it, and then
it'll come back down the line.
Yeah, you won't see my name.
Right. So it's paid outside, usually paid out of closing. We go ahead and get that paid for.
Yep.
But I think the biggest misconception is no, you don't work for that principle of the transaction. You work for the bank.
In a lending case, yeah.
Exactly.
Now, if you're an investor and you own the house and you want to know what you should list it for, you can absolutely have an appraisal done for you.
Yeah.
If you are, say you've got an agent and your agent says, I think it's only worth 150 and you think it's worth 200.
Right.
You could get an appraisal done and get a professional opinion of what it's really worth. And then you could decide. Maybe your realtor's right.
Right.
Maybe you're right.
Right.
But at least now you have the proof.
I think that when it comes to working with sellers, especially in a market that is starting to cool, when I walk in, and this kind of goes back to leading us back to that, I paid $100,000 for it 2 years ago. Looping back around, obviously you don't want to lose money. Obviously something has changed in your life that you no longer want to live in that home. I think that going in, it's a feeling of empowerment.
Sure.
It doesn't do any good. You're the seller. You have paid for this appraiser. You know what the next appraiser, theoretically, because all of you robots use the same numbers and the same data, correct?
Doesn't really work like that.
For the most part.
We all give opinions.
Right.
And even an opinion can vary. So a $200,000 house might be worth 190 to someone. It might be worth 210.
And that's where the kind of appeals process comes in. That's where you can kind of say, my agent, we had it listed at 200 because all of these over here looked like this, and you came back and said 190. What do you know that we don't know? What comps did you use? Did you realize that comp is sitting on the landfill? It's 3 feet from a landfill, whereas mine is sitting next to the beach. Did you realize that? We're going to take a break, and when we come back, I want to talk a little bit more about the difference between, we kind of have the difference between the CMA and the appraisal.
Okay.
The next question for a lot of buyers is inspection and appraisal, and how do they work together, or do they? So
sounds good.
Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk about that.
Okay.
And we are back. We are in studio today with Michael
Gentilini
with
Irish
DFW Quality Appraisals. We've been talking a little bit about like the CMA and what you can find online and valuation.
Yeah.
The other place I think a lot of people get confused because during the home buying process,
Sure.
there are a couple of different things that happen. One is the inspection of the home.
Mm-hmm.
And one is the appraisal. And both of these things are scheduled
Sure.
before you go to closing, before
Yeah.
we get there. The inspection comes first. And I think a lot of buyers and sellers get confused. Do those two lines ever cross each other?
Oh, sometimes I'll see a home inspector when I'm at the house, and sometimes I'll see a real estate agent when I'm at the house.
But
What?
you don't need the inspection report. You don't need
We
the...
don't. We're not experts in inspection. So if we
Okay.
go back to our trees,
Yes.
sure. So when I look at the house, my level of inspection has to do with value. It's
Right?
pretty simple. I'm not looking at a lot of the nuts and bolts.
Okay.
And I don't look at every outlet. I don't test
Okay.
everything. I'm looking for a lot of general stuff that affects value.
Do you really care if the outlets work?
If it was FHA, I do.
Okay.
But I'm not going to test every single one in the house.
Okay.
I'm probably going to test a couple, and
Okay.
then I'm going to make a crazy assumption.
Right? That they all
That-
are doing what they're
yeah,
supposed to do.
Absolutely. It makes sense.
So are you on the roof and are you in the attic and are you crawling around in crawl spaces?
I'm not in the roof.
Okay.
I will look at the roof from the ground, and if I
Okay.
see something obvious,
Okay.
then the lender wants me to tell them that.
Right.
Right. The
Right.
lenders want to know, hey, is there something that's going to affect this asset in the
Right.
next 30 years? So if the roof's in bad shape,
Right.
if the foundation's cracked really bad,
Right.
if there's water coming in,
Right.
if it's FHA, there's a few more things.
Right. And
Sure.
VA is a whole different animal.
VA, there's different levels, but they always want to know there's something called the 3 S's.
Okay.
There's safety, there's soundness, and there's security.
Okay.
Okay, so security is a weird sounding word. It sounds like the other two.
Right.
This has to do with the security of the asset.
Okay.
So they don't want to have a house that backs to a busy road or
Okay.
that's maybe zoned a little bit funny
Right.
and that's going to change. Maybe it's a transitional area.
Right.
They don't want to make a loan for this and 10 years from now it becomes
Right.
that.
Right.
Or they can't sell it because of something to do with the location, usually
Sure.
security. Soundness would be weatherproof, roof.
Is it fixing to fall down?
Yeah, is there
Okay.
a hole in the wall?
Okay.
Right? And then your safety is going to be broken glass. It's going to be, again, the roof. It could be the roof.
Right.
You walk on the floor, it's spongy.
Right.
Right? Or you
The
walk
whole thing's
in,
on a
the whole
5-degree
thing kind of
angle. Yeah,
angles.
okay, yeah.
So we're looking for things that are obvious that
Right.
we're going to see.
Okay.
The lender wants to know. And
Okay.
those things those contribute to value.
So what about if you're not really worried about like the heater and the air conditioning and the, all of that kind of stuff?
Sure.
What about painting, carpeting, countertops? How much of that stuff do you care about?
So we have to kind of rate houses. So, and we use something most of the time for lending. We use this kind of C1 to C6.
Right.
That's what the folks that buy tell us.
Right.
And so C1 is a brand new house that's never been lived in.
Right. Okay.
C2 is a slightly new house that's been lightly lived in,
Okay.
but it's not to the point where things have to be replaced.
Okay.
A C6 is a house that's fallen down.
Okay.
All right, you definitely can't live in there. A C5 is almost falling down, but it's got
Just
a
not
little bit where you
condemned
can
yet.
live there.
Yeah. Okay.
Sure.
All right.
Most houses are going to be like a C3 to a C4.
Right.
Unless it's
Average.
pretty new.
Right.
Yeah, and then that's kind of average. And so a C3 would be a house that has newer paint and has a bunch of cosmetic updates.
Right.
It may even have if it's a 15-year-old house, the HVAC was replaced. 'Cause It
Right.
had to be replaced. Or you just had a hailstorm, the roof was replaced.
Right.
So it's been partially updated and well maintained. And then you get to like your C4 where maybe it's been well maintained, but it's just
Right.
been not updated. So we're going to kind of categorize that. And then
Everything
we're going to
yeah.
compare it to things that are similar with regards to that.
Okay. So we're going to go into that little uncharted territory again.
Sure.
Hear what I'm saying. I have no problems with any of these online places where people can go and do
Yeah.
things. Our market is changing. We're doing things differently. Embrace it.
Absolutely.
But do it properly. There are a lot of services out there now that are based primarily online. They buy your house from you, and then they turn around and then they sell it to someone else, and they have their own systems, they have their own documents, they have you can access the home yourself, and they are touting this as a very positive thing for the consumer. But let's talk about basically what they are is they're home flippers.
They're just big investment companies on a computer.
Buy low, do some things, sell higher.
Absolutely.
Does what they're putting into it, because a lot of times they don't replace the HVAC, they don't replace the water heaters, they don't replace countertops.
Yep.
They paint and they do countertops sometimes, cabinets,
Depends on the neighborhood.
How much of a difference does that make if they put $20,000 into a rehab, let's say? Is it worth my buyer buying it for $50,000 more than that?
It depends on the buyer, and it depends on what you want, and it depends on the neighborhood. So if you're in a neighborhood where everybody else that's updating their homes and that's all that they're doing, that's more than adequate. You're probably not going to get a return on that really nice custom kitchen or crazy stuff that you can do. There's all sorts of things you can do to customize and spend a whole bunch of money. They don't necessarily equate into value because we look at what everybody else is doing. So if everybody else is doing it, why not? So
if every other house in the neighborhood, and this is where, you go online, people, I love this. It's kind of funny to me. It's actually a love-hate thing. Pictures. Oh my gosh. Some of these houses that you look at, the pictures, they just look like palaces. And when you get there, they just have really good photographers.
They have great photographers. There's a lot of cute houses and
it's a huge industry for the photographers who have the right cameras with the right angles. And I will say this, Photoshop is not allowed. I've had a couple of clients say, well, they must have Photoshopped this. No, they didn't Photoshop it.
No.
They just used the right lighting and the right angle, and they know what they're doing. But you can go back and look at those records. So without having to go into the homes that sold in the last 3 months, you can tell, have they been upgraded, have they not been upgraded by those pictures.
Yeah, and if you get into a neighborhood where a lot of the houses are the same, then you know that it's going to kind of all be laid out the same. And you see kind of typical finishes. You might see, well, this one's got some newer floors.
Right.
And they painted the walls, and this one they redid the tile in the bathroom. And it kind of works out. So it's a house that's been partially updated.
Right.
It's not a C2 from our world has been completely remodeled back to the day one. And think of like if you hear the word gut remodel.
Yes, that's exactly what I was about to say.
They
back to the
studs and they rebuild the entire house.
Right.
It is essentially a brand new house, but because it's been lived in, it's no longer new.
Right. So that's a nice little key there too. New houses.
Yes.
So when I take a buyer client to a builder, and we're looking at new houses, we write a contract. They are guaranteeing me that the appraisal is going to come back at whatever they tell me they're selling me the house for.
Sure.
Why is that different from me going out into an existing neighborhood and finding a house? Why is that not the same thing?
Well, some of the builders are also telling you that they guarantee you're going to pay that price, whether the appraisal comes back or not, that's on you. But so the builder is going to build a whole neighborhood of maybe 4 different houses, 5 different houses.
Right.
And they're going to sell all of them for about the same price.
Right.
And they're going to build these spec homes, which are going to have kind of the most common things that most people want. And that's the kind of data they're going to give here.
Right.
And so they're researching their competitors who might be building a quarter mile down the street, and they're pricing the same too. So we have an awful lot of data, right? You can go down the street and find, hey, there's 4 exact same model.
Right.
They're selling from $200 to $220. The one that's $200 has all basic finishes. The one for $240 has hand-scraped hardwood floors. It has wrought iron railings. It has a huge covered patio and an outdoor kitchen.
Right.
But we can look at that stuff.
So take me forward in time then, 10 years.
Sure.
When all of these new builds are coming on the market.
Yeah.
How do you, as the appraiser person, robot with the heart, come in and know the difference between which of these was a base model home and which of these was the top end with the wrought iron and the hand scrape? Can you tell at that point down the road?
You can tell, but a lot of time it doesn't matter. Because you can definitely go too far with customization.
I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah, and you don't always get a return on that.
What I tell my clients on that is consumerism, right? If you go and you have a wonderful steak dinner You have enjoyed the heck out of that dinner. You have chosen to have that dinner and that glass of wine and, pay hundreds of dollars for this experience, for the experience of consuming this.
Sure.
That's what I tell my clients about their upgrades. Understand that the higher you go, the more you are actually consuming. So in the end, what does that mean? That means that you're going to end up eating that cost.
And sometimes you take an even bigger loss because sometimes something that fads change.
Right.
So if you do something and in 5 years that's no longer in, when you're buying and selling, you'll walk into a house.
Yeah.
And you'll have in your mind what you think a house should look like, what you expect. And you'll see something that was custom 5 years ago.
Right.
And to you, you're like, oh my gosh, that is so dated.
Yeah.
How can they live with that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so to them, or to whomever who had that built 10 years ago,
that was their choice.
That was it.
Yes.
That was the greatest thing.
Yes,
There's
absolutely.
just no guarantees with upgrades.
Absolutely. And it's easier, I would think, to do in like a builder tract situation.
Sure.
Because all of them were kind of like you said, 10 years from now, when these homes are starting to come back on the market, you can kind of apples to apples that.
Yeah, you really don't know the value of a home until it's resold.
Right.
That's when the market comes in.
Right. And all of those things work together. Like it's the time that we're in, what is happening with, finance around the world.
Sure.
What is happening in that particular area. Are you in an area that's in decline? Are you in an area that has had some kind of boon come into it? Did they just discover oil in California? Whatever it is. We still have to look at those things as well.
Absolutely.
Did Amazon just move into the neighborhood?
Amazon.
Right?
Amazon's coming. You
go.
could be buying in a brand new neighborhood and buy it. If you buy at the beginning of the neighborhood, you're going to get all sorts of incentives to get in.
Right.
In the middle of it, the incentives can change daily or weekly. So you may get $20,000 in upgrades, or you'll get a lot premium. Well, you may buy at the end of the neighborhood. At the end of the neighborhood, the builder will just drop the prices to get rid of those.
Right. So
and that will affect you because that's what's available at the time.
And we're running out of time, but let's hit on that really quickly because that is a really big deal.
Sure.
So you have these builders who you bought in phase one, and you got an excellent deal, but you still paid a lot of money. You got all the upgrades and all of the whatever.
Yep.
3 years later, they're still building in phase 57, just 2 miles away, but it's still considered part of this, phase and area. It's still what's out there.
Never ends.
They have the same pool with you, the same HOA, all of it. And I want to sell my house. How does that builder impact me on my appraisal?
The builder doesn't.
Okay.
So your neighbors do. If
Okay.
you're the first one to sell your house,
Right.
and nobody else has, you're definitely not going to get what the builder's going to get.
Right.
All right. The builder's
You can't
probably
compete with the builder.
is raising their price every month.
Right.
They're changing the finishes, so you now have a used product. You're trying to sell your used car
Yes,
at the
absolutely.
car delership for new car dealership price, and you're not going to get
Right.
that. But if you're the 20th house, well, then that market's being established.
Right.
And so you're going to be competing with other houses where people lived in them and then decided to move. And they're
Right.
going to be a better indicator of a house that's slightly used
Right.
than a house that's brand new.
Because and they've put their stamp on it, and they've had their dogs in there, and they've had their,
but they cleaned it up to resell.
and they painted it purple, and they, because that's their home.
Right.
Personalization of your home is a huge deal,
Yeah.
And does that really have much impact on when you come in? And I know you're not looking at the air conditionings and the water heaters.
Sure.
Does that have much of an impact on you when you come in and look at one that's just beige versus one that is purple and blue and orange? And
Color won't matter a whole lot, but it can. So we're going to look at like the marketability. And then
Okay.
so if you look at data, it will show you that house with the purple walls and
Right.
crazy stuff going on.
Right.
It probably sat on the market for 90 days or 100
A minute
days.
longer,
And
right?
every other house sold in a week. So that's telling you something. The market is saying, we're
Right.
not really ready to give you full price for that house.
Right. And we do need to go to another break, but I wanted to point out really quickly, your job
My job.
is to tell the bank the way the house sits exactly right now, the colors that exist, the flooring that exists, the roof that exists, how much it is safe enough to give you, how much it's comfortable
Essentially.
enough to give you.
Our goal, we are the unbiased third party that comes in
Absolutely.
and tells the bank, you can rest assured that this loan you're making is a good loan.
Okay. So if people have questions and they want to get a hold of you directly,
Sure.
what's the best way to do that?
You can find me on the Facebook group
Okay.
or the Facebook page.
Okay.
Which is just going to be same as my website.
Okay.
My website's DallasAppraiser.com.
Okay.
So I've got contact us. You can call the office. And
Great.
Christine will get a hold of me at 469-216-2050.
Great. Excellent.
And if you call me a lot, she'll give you my cell number.
Perfect. All right. So we are going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're actually going to talk about a city that's up and coming and see kind of how you would handle that.
Sure.
All right.
Sounds great.
So we are back. So Michael, we were talking about a little bit during the break. You've watched this area grow. We were kind of talking about the different directions things are growing. One of the things we like to do on the show is kind of talk about a municipality or an area that is still very first-time buyer friendly, that is a new growth area, either resurging or literally growing out of nowhere. And I want to talk a little bit today about the city of Princeton. Kat, can you show us where Princeton is for the people who aren't familiar on that
Princeton
map?
5 years ago.
Okay, so even just 5 years ago, Princeton was nowhere. You can see on the map, if you can see the map, it's right off of 380, north of, it's really kind of on the same line as McKinney, right?
It's off of 380.
So if you go 75 up to McKinney and then you kind of go to the east on 380, it's there. But the nice thing is that it doesn't, it doesn't just keep going north. It kind of goes off. It's very convenient to Greenville. It's very convenient to, you can come down 78 and come through Wiley, Saxe, that area. So a lot of people are choosing to move out there.
Sure.
They're growing into that area. It is kind of the next McKinney. It has a really interesting history because when it was first founded, obviously in the 1800s, it was like farmland.
Sure.
And then when the railroad came through, they had to have a name for their town. And the two brothers who were like the primary movers and shakers in this little tiny, 300-person area. I think their name was Wilson or something like that, and there was already a stop on the railroads that was Wilsontown or something like that. They couldn't use that name, so that's how they ended up with Princeton, because it's the first name of the second in command, I guess, of the area at the time.
Makes sense.
And then they started growing a little bit more. During the war, they were one of the areas that had an internment camp for
Really? That's good to know.
and not the Japanese, but for like foreign war, like they had a little POW camp there, and they still have like a sign, but now it's like a soccer field, right? Like there's no buildings or nothing like that, but they still have the historical marker. And then in I believe it was the 50s, Lake Lavon came. And the funny story is, and I told you this earlier, the house I live in now, I'm in McKinney, and it was actually built at Lake Lavon in the 50s.
Sure.
And when they regraded the lake in the 70s, it was moved to the location in McKinney where it is now. So it was picked up and moved to that location.
Very cool.
But yeah, in the last 5 years, Princeton has really taken off. Cool story. They had their first holiday parade this year.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was
That's
just
great.
this past weekend.
Growth is coming.
So yeah, and you can see it. Like you can see it in everything that they do. A lot of builders are out there. It's going to be a fun time for you to get out there and do appraisals at some point.
Sure.
Because what is existing there, the value is going to go up because people are coming, right?
They will, long term, they will definitely go up.
And they still have a lot of homes available under 200,000.
Yeah.
And the builders are staying right there at that under 300,000 range. And the drive time is not much worse than if you lived in McKinney and tried to commute in. And if you're going to those cities in the east, the Garlands and stuff like that, just take that alternate route down. I have some friends, actually, I got to visit with. Kat, do you have that video with Logan and Ashley? So you guys watch this video, but listen to it, don't watch it, because we had some trouble with the winds during our filming, so it might make you seasick. That's a true story. So I'm here with Logan and Ashley. You guys recently moved to Princeton, is that correct?
Correct. About a year ago.
That's awesome.
A little over a year.
How do you like it so far?
We love it. I mean, we moved out here wanting something where we can have a little more land and affordable.
Right.
And especially with having 2 young kids.
Right.
So, I mean, it was perfect for us. Everything we looked for in McKinney was way above our budget, unless you wanted to live above that.
Right.
Yeah. So.
And you guys, you don't work here in Princeton, though.
No. I primarily work out of Rowlett, which is, depending on traffic, 45 minutes to about an hour. That's kind of another plus side, is there's very little traffic. It's mostly 2-lane roads for me to get to work, so if I don't get stuck behind a concrete truck, then I can't.
Nice.
I'll make it in 45 minutes.
Nice.
But yeah, it's about between that time.
And actually, you do a little work from home.
Yes.
Do you find that you have the resources that you need here to do that? Like the internet's good, the Wi-Fi's good, the phone service?
Yeah. Now, if you drive down a little bit, you start to get spotty, but in Princeton, I have never had any troubles with it.
And the year that you guys have been here, you've seen a lot of things change. It's just in that one little year. It is an up-and-coming city. We know there's a lot of new construction. You guys chose to buy something that was existing. How did you find that?
Well, our realtor actually, she knew the guy. It was an old house that had actually been an old warehouse.
Wow.
And they converted it into a house. It was on an acre of land.
Wow. Wow. That's awesome.
Yes.
That's
so
awesome.
they knew we wanted something that we could kind of make into our own.
Right.
And luckily he's fairly good with his hands.
So you guys are the kind of, I don't think stereotypical, I really don't think there's anything stereotypical about either of you from what I know, but you're kind of the stereotypical, I want a house that I can put my own stamp on.
Yes. Fixer-upper.
Fixer-upper, right, the DIYs. So there is a lot of new construction of homes, a lot of new construction of businesses, and you guys have a new project here that you just found. It found you. How did you guys get involved with this?
Yes, so this is CB Church. I actually saw a Facebook event. Princeton's always posting about events in the city, and they were doing a interest gathering about who all would be interested in coming to this new church. And so we got involved. I went to a few meetings, and then Logan jumped in, and we've been with them since the first week.
This is our 4th Sunday now.
Very cool.
So we're going on a solid month. But we've been about 2 months since we've been involved. We're both on teams that help set up and tear down. Ashley is on the green team.
That's awesome.
And yeah, we're completely involved with them.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So that is really cool. I noticed driving out here across on 380, there's a lot of old stuff going on, and there's a lot of new stuff going on. So I'm glad that you guys are really getting to live kind of the best of both worlds. It sounds like
it really
There's
is.
a lot of mom and pop stores, and then there is strip center, like my gym is in a brand new strip center
That's
that
crazy.
they just built, I think, when we first moved in.
Yeah.
And there's stuff that's been built in the year that we've been here.
That's crazy.
That works for us because McKinney was almost too much for us.
Right. It can
There's
be overwhelming.
so much going
Right,
on.
for sure.
Now, this is a good balance. There's newer stuff, but it's still quiet and it's still a smaller town
For sure.
where it's not.
To say anything bad about McKinney.
No.
You know, my parents built our house brand new, just like they're doing in Princeton in 1992.
Yeah.
And we lived there, and that was Princeton at the time.
It was. That's true.
We had an alley, and then there was cows.
That's right. That's exactly right.
That's kind of Princeton. So after watching McKinney do that, it's very easy to see the potential in Princeton, especially right now when it's actually happening.
You're living that next generation.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for your time today.
Absolutely.
I really
Thank you.
appreciate your input. Thank you. So they love living there.
Sounds great.
I think it's going to be a challenge for you to go out and appraise there in the next few years because you're going to have those warehouses that have been converted to houses.
Sure.
You're going to have those farmlands, and then you're going to have some of those there's a lot of brand new places that have been there for a couple of years, builders' houses that have been there for a couple of years that are starting to turn. So just like you were talking about, not the first in the market in the neighborhood to sell, but they're still building. Folks, who are interested in moving out there, they can check out my website, amyreed.us. You can look at existings, you can look at buildings, and of course, if they want to go take a look at stuff, I'm more than happy. I love Princeton. It's a really unique growing area. You're going to be spending some time out there before you know it.
I can't wait.
It's an up-and-coming market. Thank you, Michael, for being with me today.
Well, thanks for having me. This was an honor.
I feel like we learned a lot, and we will see you guys next time.